Connect to your Seattle at Pier 62 with free events and programs all summer long. Family-friendly activities like music, art, dance, yoga, storytelling, fitness classes, and much more. All free for you to enjoy. Visit waterfrontparkseattle.org for the full summer schedule. That's waterfrontparkseattle.org. Connect to your Seattle at Pier 62.
Kind of nonsense conversation we're having here.
The Neon Ghost Show. The Neon Ghost Show. Right here on Rainier... what's it? Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Right about now.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm so tired. I have to pee.
This is Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and we want to hear from you. Our goal is to amplify and share the diverse voices of Southeast Seattle residents. Do you know of an engaged community member who should be featured in a community spotlight? Tell us about them. Do you know of an upcoming family-friendly, educational, or cultural event coming up? Tell us about it. If you have news to share, contact us by emailing rainieravenue.world@gmail.com. Once again, please email us at rainieravenue.world@gmail.com.
When feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or frustrated, what does self-care look like? It looks like doing something to clear your mind, such as meditating, painting, making a playlist, going outside. You can also stay connected with friends and loved ones. If you feel alone, look for an online community with shared interests or volunteer to help people in need. And use virtual sessions to talk with a mental health professional. They're here to help. If you need support, call the Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. Brought to you by the state of Washington.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world is your 24/7 digital media hub. Tune in at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TuneIn apps.
Hello and welcome to Community Spotlight, a series on Rainier Avenue Radio.world where community members interview community members. My name is Karen Zamit, but I go by KZ. And today we are going to learn about Ari Joshua, who is a Seattle-based guitarist, songwriter, composer, and he has a number of albums that are out and has some new music coming up with some very interesting guests. And he is also the founding owner of the Music Factory Northwest, based in, I believe, Madison Park. And it looks like at this moment we do not have Ari on the stream just yet. So while we are doing that, let me bring your attention to his website at arijoshua.com. He describes himself as a psychedelic jazz rock guitarist. He actually hails from South Africa, but was raised here and went to school in New York at the New School, where he developed relationships with some very well-known musicians. And I will go ahead and name drop for him until he arrives. He has a song that was released a few months ago with multiple Grammy winner jazz artist Robert Glasper. And he has some upcoming shows in the Seattle area that folks here can check out and see a live performance. He is and there we go. We have the list of shows that are coming up, including one at Jazz Alley, which is significant because Jazz Alley is known for hosting internationally touring artists. So having a local ensemble play there is beautiful. And I see that we have Ari backstage. Hey, Ari.
What's up?
Well, hey, how are you doing?
Shirt. I'm like in my living room here.
And I just realized that I need to be able to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can you turn that? Oh.
Headphones.
Haha.
Oh, okay.
Well, hey, I can hear you now. How are you doing, Ari?
Great. How are you?
I'm excellent. So I gave sort of a brief overview of who you are, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Cool. My name is Ari Joshua. My real last name is actually Zucker. A lot of people don't know that, but I started using my middle name a good 15 years ago to try to push my music career, yeah, I mean, I'm the owner of a music school called the Music Factory. The Music Factory has, I'm gonna see if I can get a better lit spot, maybe. I don't know. It's we've taught over 40,000 music lessons in the area. We've employed well over 30 professional artists as teachers. I actually was born in Cape Town, South Africa. And
yeah, I mentioned that briefly. How long did you live there?
Oh, 4 years, first 3-4 years of life. I know we landed in Seattle when I was about 8. So we moved around the East Coast a bit when we got to the United States. When I was born in Cape Town, it was during the time of apartheid. It was before Nelson Mandela had gotten out of prison. And my folks, who were both born there by circumstance, grew up in a really rough situation over there and didn't want their kids to grow up in that. So they started saving money and moved us to the States and moved to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and lived around the East Coast for a while, and have great memories of that and great memories of driving across the country in an old Volvo. And we landed up in Seattle where, my father's record collection was pretty extensive, really great record collection. And I first got into music through that record collection. And he would love Jimi Hendrix and he loved Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I remember seeing his face light up, with a level of life and excitement when that music came on.
So that's what sparked your interest in music. Did you have any musicians in your family who encouraged you to learn how to play?
I did. My grandfather was sort of into jazz piano, and my grandfather on my dad's side and all of his fathers were actually what you call cantors.
I'm not familiar. What is that?
Well, they all studied music and they led the services in a synagogue, the Jewish prayer. The singer is the cantor. They had all sort of studied that and been doing that for a generation. So there's sort of a spiritual side to it, and a musical side there coexisting right off the bat. But I never really met them. So I didn't really, it was more something that came from inside. It was almost like it was my sole purpose,
So when did you start playing?
Great question. So I begged my parents for many years to buy me a guitar, and I wanted to play Hendrix basically, and then if there was a perfect storm, and a bunch of things happened really that just led to a big injection of music. They got me a piano, which I think with a relatively short amount of lessons, I got pretty good, but I was not interested in the piano. I really wanted to play guitar. So I had this piano around the house.
For a guitar, and they gave you a piano.
Yeah, but they said, no, you got to buy your own guitar. We didn't have a lot of money, and the money that they had, was going towards basics, So the guy up the street, who was, at the time my dad's best friend, it was Barry. He wanted to be the cool guy up the street, and he bought me a guitar out of a catalog, which in those days, you didn't have your phone to scroll on telling you what you want to buy. You didn't have, you either went to the store, or you got a catalog, and this catalog had a guitar in it called the Terminator. And it was like about the time that the Terminator came out in the movies. And it was black, and it had a built-in speaker, so you didn't have to plug into an amp. And the problem was that it was really a very poor quality toy instrument, but it rocked. Like, it sounded like rock and roll, but it wouldn't hold tune. So what happened was I got it, and I would learn, Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner or Purple Haze, or, whatever was on the albums by ear, or the old blues recordings I had. But the next day I would go to play the same thing, and the notes would be in different places because the guitar wouldn't be in tune, So
about how old were you at this point?
I want to say I was probably like 12 or 11.
Okay, so you're early teenager, and you
maybe
got
13.
your guitar, and you were trying to teach yourself?
Yeah, it wasn't until I was like 13, 14. I was actually in middle school with someone and a lot of musicians in this town would know, Andy Coe. We were middle school and high school buddies, and we played together every day. Literally every day for a long period of time. And I remember I picked up the guitar, and then it was like a couple weeks later, he picked up the guitar, and we started a band right away. My first band, Rimshock, with my friend John Benyon on drums and Alec Metz on bass. And, we were in 7th or 8th grade. I can tell you that much. Our first gig was the 8th grade lock-in. The first gig before that there was some seniors at my high school. And see, when I picked up the guitar, there was I'd already gotten into the blues and Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan. And then there was this boom, like flash of the fingers, Seattle music explosion happening. Right. And I read at age 12, 13. And so, I learned some of the classics because I had the records around and my ear was able to do it. But when that Seattle music thing happened, man, I went and saw, Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Nirvana and Pearl Jam around that time, and learned all their music. And so there was these seniors. I remember the school I went to was like 6th grade to 12th grade, and there was this, I remember this one, right after I picked up the guitar, like a couple weeks, the seniors came over, and they had their punk haircuts and cool clothes. And they're like, hey, and I'm on the playground. They're like, we hear you play guitar. And I'm like, yeah, I play guitar. Why? And they're like, we need a guitar player for the talent show. So my first gig, 7th grade or so, I was playing with these seniors. I think the first song we played was like a Soundgarden song. Fast forwarding that from 8th grade.
That is such a Seattle story. I love it.
Yeah. Then there's even more Seattle. 8th grade comes along. I'm graduating middle school. And I had all these books of Jimi Hendrix, again, magazines or books. Didn't have the internet. But I remember reading that he had played football in high school and there was a picture of him in a football jersey, you know. And so in my mind, I was like, Jimi Hendrix played football in Seattle. I'm going to play football. So this is the funny part. So the summer before freshman year, I'm playing football, and I'm walking through the halls of Roosevelt High School, and I hear this gorgeous music. Like, just, I've never heard anything like it, really, like this. You know, it turned out to be Count Basie big band music, but I follow it down the hall with my bike, you know, after football practice. This is before freshman year, because they made you practice before. I go down this stairway, and I walk in, and, you know, I didn't know who these people were, but Scott Brown, the band director at Roosevelt's, sitting there, you know, conducting everyone. There's a full spread around of just 18 horn players and piano and guitar and bass and drums, full big band, Roosevelt High School. And I'm like, what's going on here? You know? And they're like, well, this is a class. And I'm like, you mean, you know, this is a class? And I'd heard, like, you know, I think, you know, I had heard that, like, the jazz band was an option kind of thing, but I didn't know the details, you know? And so I, you know, they're like, yeah, well, we're having, you know, tryouts, but we're going to Europe tomorrow on tour, so you'll have to do it when we get back. I'm going, there's a class, you could do jazz every day, and they go to Europe. Like, wow, I got to get into this. So, you know, boom, like, next thing you know, I'm, you know, at the tail end of the Seattle music explosion, learning jazz with one of the best jazz programs in the country.
Nice. Where did that lead you to?
I mean, it led me all over the place. I mean, you know, we would go see whatever was at Jazz Alley, whatever famous musicians came to town. Oftentimes the musicians would pop in to Roosevelt, and, you know, they had a fund where they could pay people to come by and do clinics. I mean, we had the Ray Brown Trio come in once. Spectacular. I got asked to play in Half Blues with them. It was spectacular. But you know, a lot of touring musicians would come in, and Roosevelt traveled all over the country, or not. Well, at that time we weren't going to East Coast, but we did award things in, you know, West Coast, and but we went to Europe twice. We went to Europe once, played all the jazz festivals, went to Mexico several times, you know, around that time I saw the Grateful Dead and Fish, and I got that full spectrum of what you could do with jazz and the rock mixed together. After high school, I traveled to the East Coast, and I studied jazz first at Rutgers, where Ted Dunbar, Kenny Barron, Ralph Peterson, Akira Tana, Vidal Roy, who was a tabla player on Miles Davis's On the Corner, you know, Mike Richmond, who I think he played with Miles as well on bass, Larry Ridley on bass, who was like on like thousands of famous recordings. I mean, these were like legendary jazz guys. We're teaching at Rutgers, and, you know, I really wanted to be in New York City, but I couldn't quite get the scholarship to pan out at the time. Although I did get scholarships. But the next year, after my first year at Rutgers, I moved to Brooklyn and started attending the New School, where there was just a ton of incredible young players there and just incredible teachers. I mean, the list.
So, Ari, we have 10 minutes left, and I would like to cover a lot of ground with you. But yeah, you have such an eclectic, interesting musical background that I'm sure we could talk a whole lot longer than 10 minutes. But let's try to tell the people your progression, what happened at the New School, and as quickly as possible, try to synopsize what your music career is, and then tell us about the Music Factory and what you've got coming up.
Cool. Well, New School is great. I mean, I was in school with Robert Glasper and EJ and Marcus Strickland and Mike Rodriguez and Mike Moreno was there. A lot of just super monster players. Like, we knew they were great then, and it's no doubt they've achieved success. Put a lot of perspective and on me and made me really search for what's important about music and why I'm doing it. And, after right around when I graduated was when 9/11 happened. It was while I was there. That was intense.
That sounds like it would be a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, my music has always been what I want to do with music hasn't changed. It's been very constant since I was pretty young. But what was the other questions?
All right. So once you graduated from the new school and you got to collaborate with these up and coming musicians, many of whom are well known on a national and international basis, did you come back to Seattle?
Yeah. I came back to Seattle. I wouldn't really mean to move back to Seattle. I was planning on staying in New York, but
did Ari freeze?
Pardon me? Yeah. I didn't plan on coming back. I'm
not hearing you, Ari.
You can't hear me? How about now? I can hear me.
I'm not hearing you, Ari.
You can't hear me?
That's not working.
I think it's on your end.
There we go. I got back.
I came back, I subletted a room here. I subletted my room in New York. I was trying to make some music happen with some old friends of mine that, I thought I'd be able to start a band with some great, really dear old friends. But that didn't really pan out. But it just so happened that the quality of life here was suited for where I was at the time. It was a bit slower than New York. It was easier to make a living. It's really tough to make a living full-time music in New York, and I just can't. I'm not the kind of person that can work a regular job. I have to be working from my heart, And, over years, I picked up some students and found myself paying the bills that way. And I worked at the Seattle Drum School for a while, and then the natural progression was to open up my own music school, which I did 15 years ago. And
that's the Music Factory Northwest?
Music Factory, yep. Yeah.
And where is that located?
It's located in Madison Valley on Madison and MLK, just a hop, skip, and a jump down from Capitol Hill towards Lake Washington, near Madrona, Leschi, not too far from Columbia City, not too far from Montlake, not too far from the U District, kind of right there by the Arboretum. Just kind of drive through the Arboretum and you come out, and we're just about there by Cafe Flora.
Awesome. So you are forwarding the gift of music, and in the meantime, you have releases and a number of bands that you collaborate with. Can you tell us about that quickly? Yeah,
I'd love to. The release that's coming out right now is from a session that happened during the quarantine. One of my idols, favorite musicians of all time, Trey Anastasio from Phish. He did this thing during the lockdown where he rented out or took over the Beacon Theater in Manhattan and had a different musicians joining him more and more each week, and he took 8 weeks. So he would fly in a musician, give him a hotel, they would quarantine for 7-10 days, take a test, and then be a part of the rehearsals. So with that protocol in place, I'd been talking to two of the guys in his band, Russ Lawton on drums and Ray Petkowski on organ. Me being a huge organ, freak. I feel like guitar and organ are just like, it's like water and clay. It's like air and water. It's just like they just go together so well. And so Ray and Russ, invited me out to Vermont to quarantine. And we went to a studio out there called The Tank. It's like a barn had been taken apart and reassembled inside this recording studio. And Fish's engineer, Ben Collette, was available, because, a lot of people didn't have a lot on their calendars. So I was able to go out there. It was going to be just a couple days, fly out there, quarantine for a week, 10 days, allowed me to compose tons of new music with nothing else going on. And, 2-3 days of recording turned into like another, 11, 12 days of hanging out and rehearsing and recording and doing overdubs and not wanting to go home because it was just so awesome. So the first track from that is called Father Time. And Father Time is coming out August 5th, 2 days from now.
A couple days from now, yes.
Yeah.
Where can people find Father Time with these well-known musicians in their pandemic collaborative?
Yeah, it's going to be released on all streaming and downloading platforms. It'll also be available for purchase directly on my website, www.arijoshua.com. And you can find all news there. Yeah, that's it right there. Boom. You got it. I love that background every time I see it.
Awesome. Ari, I wish we had more time to talk because I heard that that you've been a strong supporter of local artists who create these kinds of visuals and have supported other folks in their career being able to do that. I know that you're in a number of bands in the Seattle area. So everything can be found under arijoshua.com, all of your previous releases and collaborations.
Yeah, notably Say What You Want to Say, which features Skerrick and Delvon Lamar and Grant from the Polyrhythmics. That release is also going to be celebrated at Jazz Alley next week, August 10th and 11th, where we have Thomas Marriott, who went to Garfield and I went to Roosevelt. So we grew up together. He was like a senior when I was a freshman there. Was a great trumpet player even when he was in high school. Delvon Lamar's on organ. My buddy Luca Kartner on drums. He's a young drummer, fantastic, worth checking out by everybody. And Art Brown from Polyrhythmics and Unsinkable Heavies are all joining me at the Jazz Alley, which is just a huge honor and privilege to be there because I grew up getting into music. So if there's any all ages listeners out there or parents, come to Jazz Alley on the 10th and 11th because it's a great place for kids to get introduced to music and always quality, great music there. And it's a great place for any adults or even to bring your parents or elderly people to where you can sit down, have a meal and just really enjoy incredible sound.
And the thing that I think is interesting about you is that in a month's time, you could play jazz at one gig, complete rock on another one, and then a completely different style of music at another. And I saw on your website that you call yourself a shamanistic guitarist composer, and I'm wondering what that meant.
Well, that was not written by me, and oftentimes anything that you see that's written, if it's not misspelled, it's probably not me. I'm a terrible speller. I'm terrible with grammar. The bio was written by someone else. We hired them to do it. They interviewed me a couple times. I think what he was kind of getting at is just that when I play, I'm searching for a emotional, tingly kind of euphoric response. I'm not searching for it, but oftentimes it comes over me like a wave when I'm playing, and it feels like almost like I've heard people say pixie dust. The magic of music is so incredibly strong. It's been a healing force for me through tough times. And I believe that the things that I've come to understand about it for myself, I can share with others. There's people who can come see me play, and if they're open to that kind of, level of sort of frequency, energy stuff, it can happen. You never know when it's going to happen, but when it does happen, to me, that's the compass. That's what I'm searching for, because it's sort of like a wow kind of thing. It's And that's why I'm playing. I hone my craft. I've studied jazz. I think a lot of the jazz masters that are on the highest level, the Coltrane's and the Thelonious Monks and the Miles Davises, if you kind of listen to them enough, or if you were in the room with them and they heard me talking, I think they're kind of going for the same thing.
Right.
With jazz,
we have 1 minute left. So I hate to cut you off. I also heard you have a relationship with the Jimi Hendrix family. Is that something you can tell us? They're Jimi Hendrix's blood relatives that are in Seattle are wonderful people. And I've done performances for them, for Jimmy's birthday celebrations and the anniversary of his death. And in fact, this year they have a private gathering for the memorial service. And if I'm in town, I've been invited to it. So that's a private thing, Jimmy is, again, you talk to Jimmy and he would say, oh man, I close my eyes and I see colors and swirls, he was tuned in. And when they use that word to describe my playing, I think that's what they're talking about, is that my compass is sort of in that realm, All right, Ari. Unfortunately, our time for this conversation is ended, but I really appreciate the opportunity to share some info about you with folks. And I'm sure that there are people who are going to check out this interview who are going to learn things about you that they didn't know. Is there, very briefly, is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't covered before we close out?
Just that I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to be a professional musician, and that people should support professional musicians. And also that I think everyone out there should learn an instrument, and especially have your kids and have young people learn an instrument. The value of music is so much greater than I think we tend to place. And I think we all know it, but we forget. And it's just a wonderful medium. And I would, encourage anyone to take lessons. And it's a privilege to be on this earth doing work that I really am passionate about.
All right. This has been Community Spotlight on Rainier Avenue Radio, where community members interview community members. My name is Karen Zamit, otherwise known as KZ, and I've been talking with Ari Joshua, and you can find out more about him at his website at arijoshua.com. That's ARIJOSHUA.com, or also at themusicfactorynorthwest.com. Is that correct?
Well, the name is The Music Factory, but it's really just a website, and the URLs are Music Factory NW because, Music Factory was taken.
Okay, musicfactorynw.com. So you can catch Ari and some other incredibly talented local musicians at respected venue in downtown Seattle, Jazz Alley, on August. Let's see. What was that?
10 and 11.
10th and 11th. And the tickets are very affordable. It's a family-friendly place. They are being COVID safe. I will look forward to seeing you there, and go ahead and check for his release, the single release Father Time, on August 5th.
Yep. And then the high dive on the 21st for the rock show.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ari. And I look forward to seeing you at Jazz Alley. This is KZ signing off. Stay tuned for Phil Am Radio.
Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.